In the book The Psychology of Money, by Morgan Housel, a book that has sold more than 5 million copies and has been translated into more than 50 languages. In it, Housel talks about various topics, but we understand a very important concept when it comes to money and personal finance. Imagine if you were to take a survey of several people, asking if they would want to have $1 million in the bank. Certainly most would answer yes, of course. But what the author says makes a lot of sense. People want to be millionaires simply because they want to spend millions of dollars, imagining everything they can do with that money, and not having $1 million to manage, being literally the opposite. Having $1 million and spending $1 million may seem a little confusing, but throughout this video, you will understand this idea that the author wants to convey about financial education, divided into 3 stages or phases. Phase 1. Earning and using money the right way. Before we know how to use our money, we need to earn it. If today you have only one source of income or none at all, it's time to expand it. Here that old story of the one-legged table and the four-legged table starts to make sense. If you don't rely on a single source of income, you are like the four-legged table that can probably sustain itself with only 3, the opposite of what would happen with the one-legged table. You get the point. Have more sources of income so you don't rely on just one. Okay, but how to do that? In the beginning, without money to invest or some project to create, there is not much to do. You need to exchange time for money, work for someone and earn an amount for the service provided, or be self-employed and earn for each job. All this is called active income. When we get to have certain income for our work, we can seek passive income, i.e., increase our income through investments, business, or projects. Passive income is the one that we obtain without effort, without actively working. However, this is not so simple. All passive income must be built having worked at some point in life. For example, if today you work Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day and receive your salary, you are working to receive your active income. Now, if in addition to working daily you have another income that comes from the yields of investments that you made, that is a passive income, in which you did not need to work to obtain the earnings. However, to create this asset, you needed to work at some point in your life previously. Now that you understand what is an active and a passive income, when you start to get any of these, you must have in mind how you are going to use that income. I will tell you that it is more important to know how to use the money you earn than to earn the money itself, because money is time. You may have stopped sleeping many times to earn that money, or you may have stopped seeing your friends. Note that at the beginning we have needed to exchange time for money, whether you are self-employed, salaried, or even if you are starting a business. From the moment you receive the money and spend it on unnecessary things, you are throwing your time away. Because to improve your financial life, we must stop thinking in the short term and think in the long term. Many times people fall into a cycle where they live sadly from Monday to Friday, waiting for the weekend to arrive to spend what little they have achieved. Many times they misuse their credit cards, getting into debt and entering the next month with debts, which is an even bigger financial backlog. The idea is to never spend everything you earn in a month and to have a long-term vision, such as investing in something that will pay off much more in the future. So we move on to phase 2. Maximize income capacity and have an emergency reserve. Understanding this simple concept changes a lot of things in our financial life. This is about not just thinking as a consumer, it is about thinking as a producer. The main idea here is that most of the time when we receive an income, we already think about consuming either in products or various services. We do not have the feeling of using that money to produce but to spend it. What I mean by producing, to invest that money in ourselves or in assets, learn a new language to qualify yourself professionally, invest in a personal project, or buy quality assets. Invest in our financial independence. The main idea is to use money as a resource to create more wealth instead of just using it to spend. This is the difference between having a producer mentality and a consumer mentality. The latter, with $1,000 in hand, is already thinking about what to spend, what clothes to buy, what party to go to, among others. While the producer, with $1,000 in hand, is thinking about what is the best possible way to get a good return on that money, since we would consequently earn more, and we would have more to invest and spend. What we need is to make conscious choices. Of course, we can go out on weekends, for example, but it is good to understand what our real situation is at that moment, and evaluate if it is not better to use that money to get a better return in the future. It is always good to reflect when spending on nonsense, but of course, we cannot deprive ourselves of everything. Everything is balance. From the moment you begin to have income, and you have this thought of spending everything you earn, you can start to set aside a part to invest in your emergency reserve, which will be essential to acquire some financial peace of mind and not spend more hardship. Many people neglect this emergency reserve, but it is something crucial. It is recommended to have at least 6 months of your monthly expenses, so if you spend $500 a month, the ideal would be to have about $3,000 invested in your reserve in order to have a financial balance. Phase 3. Investing for retirement. Being debt-free, with several sources of income and with a solid emergency reserve, you are already in a financial phase that few reach, because if you stopped working now, how long could you live on just the money you have today? If you had a 6-month emergency reserve, you would have 6 months living on that money until you find another source of income. This is the measure of wealth so often mentioned in personal finance books, which measures your net worth, that is, the money you have minus your debts. If you depend solely on your job, and your monthly expenses are that $500, you have 6 months until you find a new source of income. Now, someone who has $150 million, earning at 0.5% per month and with the same monthly expenses of $500, has reached the famous financial freedom, where he does not need to work anymore, because the money will be working for him, month after month, and covers all his expenses. This is if he maintains his standard of living. If he starts taking money out of his investment, and spends more, he will become poorer and poorer. This is the difference between having $1 million to manage, and having them to spend. That is exactly the example of the beginning of the video, having money to invest, not only to buy things, because of course it is useful to spend, but with a conscience about it, because investing is completely different from just keeping money. By investing, we are making that money work for us, because we are making that invested money earn returns, that with the passage of time and compound interest, day after day you will have return on past performance, and so on, creating a snowball of investments. Of course, that is if you do not spend the returns of these investments. So, what we need is not to look rich wearing expensive clothes and using a new car, but to qualify ourselves, have a high monthly income and invest part of that money, because with the reserve formed, you can start studying investments with a focus on financial independence, investing in stocks or real estate funds, for example. It is very important to study about this topic, because learning to invest is learning how to make money work for you, which translates into passive income. If you do not have much knowledge of investments at the moment, starting to study it may seem a little overwhelming, because suddenly you will receive a lot of information, which may be unfamiliar to you, but it is not as difficult as it may seem. The most important thing is to start on this path as soon as possible. If we compare two great investors such as Warren Buffett and Jim Simons, Simons is considered the best investor in the world, because he has generated a return of 66% of his capital. Warren Buffett, on the other hand, has only generated up to 22%, so you might think that Simons is richer, but in reality Warren Buffett is. Why? Because he started investing at a young age, while Simons did it at the age of 50. To learn about all this you can follow our channel, where you can learn a lot about investments, and also there are many YouTube channels about this topic where you can learn a lot. Just make sure that the content is the best. In addition to this, it is also very good to do something called the 90-day rule. It consists of looking at your net worth today and write it down, doing this every 90 days. This way you will see your progress and basically from where you started. Doing this you will see how your net worth is growing. Of course, it is not only about writing it down, but to keep working, studying, and investing every month, and see how our earnings and patrimony increase. If you liked the video, do not forget to subscribe and leave us a like.